So today I ended the 6th journal that I was working on for the year. Spent like an hour and a half from 3 to 4:30 this morning. I couldn't fall asleep, and so I was writing and moved on to the 7th. And I got my little Halloween stickers on there since we're less than a week out from Halloween, and I thought those were super cute. And I got them with one of my recent little Etsy purchases, this little dude. Yeah. And he hangs out in my plant. Have to excuse Buddha. He is a little rambunctious. Especially, especially since I just started talking. He had his head in the food bowl for a while, but as soon as I started talking, he got interested in what's happening. So on Sunday, I went up to Kokomo and went skating with my friend, and her husband rode his bike along with us. And we did like 8 3/4 miles skating with hills involved, and it was fun. I got home that night, and my female cockatiel had died, so that was kind of a bummer. And now Buddha is all by himself in the cockatiel cage, and he's not real thrilled with that. So he's kind of gone to this rambunctious chattering since I started talking. And he's got the 2 Bork neighbors, but nobody his own species. So, yeah. He's not even doing he knows songs. Earlier, he started whistling the Pink Panther theme song, which I forgot that he knew. And because he hadn't done it in so long, he just out of the blue started doing that. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that one. Usually we get Another One Bites the Dust. And sometimes he'll move into the What You Doing stuff. Yeah. And sometimes here lately when he turns kind of robotic and almost demonic sounding, so it's kind of weird. Anyway, there's been a lot of this, and he will do his little alarm call when I walk out the room now, so need to spend a little more time hanging out with him. So I'll have to lock the dogs out, and maybe we'll learn some new things. Been kind of a weird week. So I skated on Monday because I wasn't feeling like I did anything on Sunday. I thought I was going to hurt a lot, especially with the hills and whatnot. And then ended up not feeling much of anything. So it's like, I'll go skate again. Well, then as soon as I put the skates on, then I felt it. So yeah. Skated 5 miles that day and decided to throw in some knee taps for the fun of it. Felt those. Felt them the next day anyway. Yeah, and he's good. He is really distracting. Hold on a second. Okay, so I momentarily distracted him. I put a new toy in his cage and threw some more seed in there. Yeah, so Tuesday I was kind of feeling it. Yesterday I was especially feeling it. Yesterday was a really weird day too. So yesterday I knew I was going to have to go help my mom and my aunt take my grandfather to a couple of doctor's appointments because they had to get him from the nursing home, load him up, get him over to the hospital, and then get him out safely and all that fun stuff. And it's an ordeal. So it was kind of funny because we started out, we had to drop Gracie off at her choir practice first thing in the morning, which was like, they start at 7:30. She's in 3rd grade, so starting at 7:30 for choir practice. And then Then traffic was a pain in the ass. Because, of course, going out from our driveway was a left turn, and then we had to swing in my aunt's driveway to pick her up, which is another left turn, which that one is fine because, you know, from in the middle of traffic to out of the road. But then you got to go back to another left turn to go down to the school. And my grandma decided she wasn't going to go with us, but we still had to, Buddha, chill! Still had to go back to her house, which she lives next to my aunt. So we go down to the school, and then we have to turn left again, and with the elementary starting at 7:30 because of choir practice, that's when drop-off for the school right next to it is. So it was like a big chaotic mess. And yeah, there was a lot of sitting and waiting. We go down, get my grandpa's wallet from my grandma, and then head back, go left again to go to the hospital. And it was, you know, it was fine. We were listening to the 80s station, and there was like some good music on, so, you know, singing and dancing in the car, all that fun stuff. Tuning out any potential negativity from my mom and aunt. And yeah. So I look at him, he's just looking at me. Yeah. He keeps it up, maybe I'll have to get him out. And I don't know, the dogs are in here asleep. It's like 8:30, so yeah, anyway. So, you know, I'm keeping track because like all this crazy stuff happens. I see 888 on the odometer, and then by the time, you know, there were a bunch of other synchronicities that I saw along the way, but those were, I didn't have time to take a picture of them. I mean, because it was just whatever. But I get to the nursing home, and we get parked, and my aunt runs in to get my grandpa, and brings him out to the car. After we get him in the car, this hawk, like, was very clearly flying through for attention, like the way he flew in, and then landed on the corner of the nursing home. And my aunt, you know, came out with some paperwork. She had to, like, take the wheelchair back in and get the paperwork, and then when she opened the back door of the car, the hawk turned and looked at us, and I got a really good picture of it, you know. And this happened, and then I look at the clock, and it's 8:25, and it's 55 degrees, so of course there's 555 right there. And then I happen to look down at the odometer, and I see 99.9. It's like, okay, clearly I'm where I'm supposed to be. So, see all that, and then we go over to the hospital, and I drop them all off at the door, and, you know, they go in, and I go park. I parked in one of the handicap slots, because, I mean, my mom, my aunt, and my grandpa all use that. Normally I won't, but if I don't, there was the possibility that he would have to stay for like a blood transfusion or a treatment otherwise, so I figured if I parked there, then if somebody needed to go out to the car, they could, although it was most likely going to be me anyway. But then I went in. When I got in, they were already in the waiting room over at the cancer center. And I walk in the door, and my grandfather looks at me, and the first thing he says is, "You got a thing in your lip." It's like, yeah. And I don't remember like the whole conversation, but it was like, yeah, it's been there for a year, or for over a year now. And he's like, oh. And, you know, kind of had this attitude of I didn't know that, and yet very much it's like, you've seen it before. Because literally that is the only thing he will say to me if we're in the room together and nobody else is there to have a conversation. Like, you know, if we were at his house before for the Sunday night thing, he would um, he would just like randomly look at me and say, "You have a thing in your lip." It's like, "Yep, it's still there. Gonna be there because I put it there, and I paid to put it there, and I'm going to keep it." But yeah, there's that, and then we got into the place. They did the labs, and he didn't end up needing anything on that end, so we went to the next appointment. In the waiting room, oh, Buddha. I was in the waiting room with him, and you know, he mentioned it again, and I was asking something about it. It's like, whatever. You don't want me to do this, do you? Yeah, we need to work on more words. Yeah, so he mentioned it again, and it's just like, whatever, just kind of blew it off. When they got called back for the appointment, I went back out to the car. It's like, let me know when you're on your way. Clearly you don't need me, and I don't have any interest in going back there. So I go out to the car, and since I'm going to be sitting in the car anyway, I move it to like the back row, and I back into the slot in the back row, and I look up, and there's 3 cars in front of me with the license plate facing me, and the first one says 999, the next one says 234, and then the third one says 333. It's like, I'm meant to be here. What can I say? Yeah. And like, there was a bunch of stuff. Like, then after we were done there, we took my mom and my grandpa back to the nursing home, dropped them off. He had a physical therapy appointment while we were gone, and my mom got his bed made and all that stuff. So my aunt and I went and got lunch, and then brought some stuff back from my mom. And when we got back, they took him to lunch with the nursing home, and yeah, it's fine. No, it didn't bother me any. Not that I'm my grandfather's favorite, well, biggest fan or anything, so yeah. So at the restaurant, we went to Culver's, and I happened to be messing around with the money I'm standing there holding, and I see 666 on the $20 bill I have in my hand. It's like, because everything else is like just one thing after another, I'm going to take a picture of this. When I turned my phone on to take a picture of it, it was 11:11. It's like, of course it is. So then we get to the table after we order our food, and I notice my receipt says 11, 12, 13 at the top. It's like, And I showed my aunt, and then she showed me hers, and hers said 11, 11, 14. It's like, And then like mine had cost $11.44, so it's like, there's another one. So we just got more and more, and then there was like 11.43.34 on the last receipt. We got ice cream before we left, and you know, it was just like nonstop. And then we go back, and you know, I have my headphone or my earbud in on the one side, and kind of listen to music that I like to listen to. Twin Flame came out with a song recently that I absolutely love and have listened to just about nonstop since then. And my mom had some Elvis thing on TV, and it's just like, I don't care. And then immediately after that was The Partridge Family, but it started from the beginning, so I'd never seen it before, so, you know, we'll watch that. Well, I half watched. I was mostly listening to music. um, and okay, things kind of started to get weird after that. Like, there were some other things before we left. We ended up leaving not too much later. Like, my grandpa got back and, you know, they kind of visited with him for a little bit, and then he was tired, so they put him in bed, and then we left. And we got home, and then I went and walked my dogs at the cemetery. Ziva pooped. To be expected. She frequently poops once, if not 3 times, on a single walk. So she pooped, I picked it up, and then we kept on walking. And I didn't tie it off because I figured if anybody else pooped, I'd just put it in the same bag. Because I sometimes do that. So we're walking. And we're going up this hill on the way to the trash can. And all at once I feel something wet on my arm. It's like, what the hell's this? And I look down, and it's not from the top of the bag. The stupid bag had a hole in it. I don't know if I snagged it with my keys at some point or what, but the poop bag had a hole in it, and I got it like in 3 spots on my shirt and 2 spots on my shorts, and it's like, shit. Literally. It was aggravating. So we stop and throw the bag in the trash can, and I grab a stick and like flip it off my shirt. Not like it wasn't a huge amount, but just enough to annoy me to death. Where it gets weird. I sent a message to like 2 or 3 of my friends and was like, you're not gonna believe this. It's like all these synchronicities all day telling them exactly where I'm supposed to be, right? And then randomly the shit bag has a hole in it and I'm wearing it, and that's not happy. And I went to send my friend Ben a message, and yes, so this is how fabulous. Okay, I totally fell. Okay, can't really stare right there. And yeah, bruised the shit out of the left or the right side, and just skinned the shit out of the left side. And it's like, the hell? And it's like, there was nothing that felt like it was, you know, in any way not where I was supposed to be or what I was doing. It was just like, why is the universe suddenly shitting on my day? Yeah, trying to pull my pant leg back down. Yeah, I was not thrilled, obviously. So, banged my knees. Well, I was taking this little lady I occasionally work for to a hair appointment to get her bangs trimmed, and I was like, I got home and had like 40 minutes. It's like, I am going to take a shower and salt myself real quick to try to get this bad juju out of my aura, right? Oh, but I also saw 555 and 888 and like more synchronicities on the way home. So it's like, there's these 2 things that were kind of shitty. I mean, one literally shitty. And then, like, I'm still seeing all this stuff saying, hey, you're in the right spot. It's like, oh, what does this even mean, right? Oh, man. So I go home and do the shower with the salt and get dressed and leave and go talk to the other lady. And, yeah, it was fine. She was upset because her daughter and son-in-law that she's been living with for several years have decided they're going to sell the house that she's also co-owner on. And yeah, she's upset about that. But, you know, just kind of let her talk about it. We got along just fine. Everything was fine. Got over to her appointment. I stayed there because I knew it was going to be a short trip. I got the next appointment set up. And then we went and left and went down to the bank and got her bank card situation figured out, which that was accidentally satisfied. She got locked out of her card because there were some sketchy charges on there that she didn't do. And for about the past 3 weeks or so, it might even be longer than that, honestly. I think it is. I think we're probably more like 5 or 6 weeks. We talked about me taking her to the bank to get a new card. Well, it kept not happening. Of course, she can only ride in my mom's Edge. The other ones we have are too tall. So that's been the big issue, because then my mom is over at the nursing home most of the time with my grandfather. Or running whatever other appointments. So, we were going through the drive-thru. Her card didn't work at the drive-thru. So we ended up going in. It's like, hey, while we're here, let's just get this handled, and then we don't have to worry about it anymore. So we got that handled. And then, so I went back home. And then, okay, there's this thing that happens, and has happened since I was in high school, maybe even middle school, where like my dad was playing with my mom's hair or something. Fine, whatever. He walks past me and he patted me on the back. And ever since I was either high school or middle school, I don't know what it is, like I cannot stand for him to touch me. Like he just patted me on the back, and he's never done anything, sketchy otherwise. It's just the pat on the back or whatever just makes me do all this crazy shake it off kind of shit. And like noticeably like I don't know why, but it's like always really bothered me, and I don't want any part of it. So even just now I still get that feeling. That happened, and then there was nothing really else at that point. I go to bed early. It was like 9:15, I think. And I decide to make sure I can go to sleep. So I have this, it's through Twin Flames 1111. It's like a soul star activation or something. And I've done it several times. And connect with your, the higher levels of yourself, whatnot. And so I did this thing, and then I fall asleep, and I sleep good. At some point in the middle of the night, I have these series of dreams, and I messaged them to myself. The last of them was the one that really stood out. And that one, it's like, okay, the room that I'm in now is my office. When I was growing up, it was my bedroom. And, since my brother's not here, I took over his old bedroom. His old bedroom is now my bedroom, and my old bedroom is now my office. So, I have this dream, and the bed is over in this corner, where I'm looking at it at the moment, but I'm not going to show you that because I've been going through boxes, and it's a hot mess. But I have this dream, and in it, my uncle is standing at the foot of the bed talking to Gidget. And I am not happy that he is there. I am uncomfortable. But, I had like the pillow over my head and was just kind of pretending to be asleep so that he would go away. He didn't. Of course, that'd be too easy. He comes over and tries to move the pillow because he's going to like kiss me on the cheek or something. And it's like, it's like, fuck no. So I hold this pillow down over my face, and like he gets mad because, you know, that was my response to what he was going to do. And he moves from going to kiss me on the cheek to holding the pillow over my face and trying to suffocate me. And of course, like, I'm all in a rage after this, right? And I come flying up and throw his ass out of the room because I don't even know why he's in there to begin with. But yeah, it was just like this whole thing. Then I hear him talking to my aunt in the other room. So I go flying out there, and it's like, are you lying about this like you lie about everything else? Here, let's tell her what actually happened. And then, you know, I kind of unload on it. And then for some reason, when I think I was so, like, enraged and, like, went to walk out of the room, and he, like, went to, I don't know if he was going to pat me on the back or what, and kind of one of those diminish me kind of things, but I just, like, how I woke up, I did not actually scream, but I woke myself up because I was screaming in the dream, and I said, don't you fucking touch me, don't you ever fucking touch me. And it's like, well, that was intense. So I, of course, text myself these dreams because that seems like it's some kind of relevant. And yeah. So after I feed the dogs, I sit down and I start writing. And I'm putting these pieces together and kind of making sense of the dream situation, what happened in the day, you know, the deal with my grandfather, the deal with my dad, and then this dream that had my uncle in it. It's like, it's just a whole lot of icky feeling, you know, and I think that a lot of it's that energetic level, and there's something more going on at an energetic level. Most people aren't aware of it. I wasn't aware of it before, and it's been a matter of me unraveling, like, everything that I've been working through in the past year and a half that, you know, I'm starting to make sense of stuff, you know. And so I was talking to my brother about this stuff today, because he borrowed my car, and then he brought it back over here, picked me up, and then we drove over to his house, and we were talking that whole time, and I told him about the dream and all this chaos, right? And let me figure out where I was even going with that. And so I tell him about the dream, and he's like, no. I mean, he did ask what I'd been, or what I ate before bed. It's like, well, you know what? There's actually more to that. But, okay, here it is. So, I tell him about the stuff with my grandfather, and it's like, I said, the point isn't whether he knew I had my lip pierced or not. The point is that it is something that is obvious that is one of those things where I'm not conforming to what's acceptable for his family or not. And I told my brother, it's like, you know, when I was with the second serious boyfriend, I signed up to take this motorcycle class, I said, and he found out about it, and he says, why do you always got to do everything different? You got two of the ugliest cats in the world. You got damn geckos. You got tattoos. And now you're taking this motorcycle class. It's like, back then, what I said was, my sole purpose for existing is to piss you off. And it shut him up. It was kind of a relief for me. But it's like, as I was telling my brother, it's like, literally, it's always the stuff with where I'm not acceptable that he wants to focus on. You know, before I got my lip pierced, it was the fact that I had tattoos. You know, and then that incident was back in like 2008, 2009-ish. And, you know, then it was, ugly cats because I liked the unique ones, and the ones that I had were tortoiseshell colored. And I had one that was a Manx, so she didn't have a tail. So that was a problem. And then I had reptiles, and that was a problem. It's like, it's just like just me being me and doing anything that I want to for me is a problem. And that was why, the deal with the lip ring, or like why it even mattered. Because it's not, like, I don't care whether he's got dementia or whatever, and he really doesn't act like he has too many issues with the memory side of things, except for once in a great while, like when he was in the hospital drugged up right after he shattered his femur and had surgery. That was like the big time where he was confused. Aside from that, it's not. Aside from that, it's just like when he wants to be an asshole or whatever. So, yeah. And of course, everything that I have done, he hadn't commented on any of the other ear piercings or anything. No, it's just the lip piercing. I pointed out that I had my nose double pierced, and then he was like, I didn't know that. It's like, you didn't care because you see the other one first, and that's the one you want to bitch about. But either way, just because it's me, it would be bitching. And I told my aunt the other day, it's like, okay, when it was just me and my brother, we always knew he was the favorite. Like, there was no denying it. He was flat out the favorite. Now, part of it might be because he was more into sports and I was more into music, and, my grandfather's more into sports, doesn't give a shit about music unless it's like old, ancient history, country kind of bullshit. And, I'm a big fan of turning that off. Not that I would if I was driving their vehicle. I listened to it, stuck it out many times, just because they're old and that's what they wanted to listen to. So, now, if we're in my mom's car and I'm driving, I'm going to listen to something I want to listen to. I don't care if he's in the car or not. But I told my aunt, it's like, when it was just me and my brother, he was the favorite, and we both knew that. And he will still say he felt bad because he knew that. And when my mom's sisters had their kids, they each had two, I was relieved when the last grandchild was born, because I knew he was the one that was going to be gay, and I knew that he was going to be right there with me on the shit list. So I wasn't going to be there by myself anymore. And, I feel bad saying that like that, but at the same time, I was relieved that it wasn't going to be me just being hated all my life anymore, And, that kid, he's mid-20s now, but, he's a good kid. And he has all sorts of boundaries with the family, and he doesn't come around like hardly at all. There's been lots of drama on that end. Oh, and yeah. But I told his mom, it's like, I was relieved when he came around because I knew I wasn't going to be there by myself anymore. And that's shitty. And I remember I used to watch her kids more often than the other two. And that was a common conversation piece, and they were usually the ones to bring it up. But it was just, like the youngest daughter was the one that was the favorite, because at that point he realized he wouldn't have any more kids. His option for a son, that was dead and gone. He got 3 girls. But the last girl at least was a little bit of a tomboy, and, so she won him over on that end. But yeah, never mind the extensive emotional issues for the other two, trying to always live up to something that's absolutely unattainable with his approval. So that was kind of a whole thing. Yeah. Now, what else on that end? Another thing I was talking to my brother about, it's like, this was a conversation from another day. My dad and I went over to his youngest sister's house. She's, I think, could be 4th of 6. And I was talking to her about a whole lot of stuff, and he was there and got to listen along. It's like every now and then he'd try to change the subject to find his way in the conversation, and then when it'd go back, he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," and blah, blah, blah. And, but it was kind of like, yeah, you did. But it's just kind of on a roll with stuff. And I was talking about, some of the suicidal ideation phase, and she said, "Really? I didn't know that." And she was all concerned about it. And she looks at my dad and she's like, "Did you know that?" And he's like, "Well, yeah." He said, "I've had some of that too." And, a little bit later he comes out with, "But your mom and I are always here for you." And I was just like, no, we are not going to touch on that. We are not going to touch on that one at all, because you are not ready for what I have to say on that end. And I told my brother, it's like, at a time when my life was falling to pieces and like everything that I had known and thought that I was loved in any way, as soon as my great-grandfather died, that all went to shit. And then, my cousin started his bullshit, and then, that basically set me up to where, like, the next several years of my life were shit. And in the middle of all that, rather than trying to figure out what was going on and why I was suddenly acting out, I went from being called Daddy's little princess to Daddy's little farthead, because clearly whatever I was going through just needed some more bullying at home, right? It's like, fuck it. And my luck, that'll be what Buddha picks up. Oh, crap. Anyway, yeah, I've told my brother about that, and, he's been working through some stuff on that end, and, made a comment about how he's been realizing that in spite of what their best efforts or whatever, a lot of our traumas go back to them. It's like, because if you're living from the wound and refusing to heal the wound gets passed on. And that's what it did. And now me and my brother are the ones that are trying to heal it, and it is very painful and sucks, to be honest. Okay. A couple months ago, there was an ordeal with the puppy. And it wasn't the puppy. It was my niece kept trying to pick the puppy up. And she has been told multiple times she is not to pick the puppy or any of the dogs up at any point in time. Because she has this tendency to, once she, gets that little bit of time and she doesn't pay attention. She brought our something like 13-year-old Sheltie in the house one day, carried her in, and dropped her as soon as she got in the door. It's like, no, that is how you hurt them. You do not pick them up under any circumstances. Just quit it. So there's the ordeal, right? So then there's kind of this back and forth, and, well, Uncle says she can pick it up. It's like, I said, you stop right where you're at. You put that puppy down and, walk away. Do not go back to picking the puppy up, and she was getting ready to carry the puppy out of the fence without a leash. So that's a whole ordeal too, because we're pretty damn close to a very busy road. And yeah. So anyway, that was a whole ordeal. Where it became a big problem though, was my uncle comes out and throws out some line of shit about, I don't even remember what he said, but it was his, or something to the effect of me, or he didn't know that I had say-so over his dog or something. And I just looked at him and I flat out called him a fucking dumbass. And, you know, and the whole issue was, as far as that kid goes, that's my brother's kid. I have more of a say-so for that kid than he does because he just married in. And I know how many times me, my mom, and my aunt have all said, do not pick up that puppy under any circumstances. And so that was the whole thing, right? Well, like I flipped my lid. And then I went home because I was not trying to deal with that whole situation anymore. Didn't want to be around the family at that point in time. This was before my grandpa's ordeal that ended up in the hospital, blah blah blah, where he's been for like 8.5 weeks now. Well, he's at the nursing home now, but the whole thing, right? So regarding the puppy, I sent my mom sent a message saying, well, it's just, you know, us and the grandparents over here if you want to come back. It's like, no. I said, you didn't hear what? I said, didn't you hear what I said? Because, you know, I yelled at my uncle on the porch and she was sitting at the kitchen table, which was like right in the window, which the windows were closed, sure, but I figured because I was like, you know, way up here on going off on him, I figured that she probably would have heard it. And I just got up and stormed off. I was just done. So she's like, no, she said, I saw that you were upset about something, but I didn't hear what happened. And so I gave her the whole spiel and she says, do you care if I tell your aunt? And it's like, go for it. I said, I was going to send both of you a message as soon as it happened, but then I figured I needed to calm down for a little bit first. And when I got home, I was like, okay, that seems like it was a little extra for the anger, like for the anger of the situation. Yeah, I was angry, but it seems like there's a lot more oomph in that anger that was coming out, you know, and yeah. So then I thought about it, and I remembered back to, shit, okay. I remember back to being this little kid. I think I was 9 or 10 when our room addition got built onto our house. Because before, we didn't have the family room attached to the kitchen, and then, you know, like, we were thinking it was like 93, 94 that got added on. So, what happened was they came up to visit. My uncle always used to play really rough, and, you know, little kids don't really, it's kind of fun that way, right? Everything was going to shit in my life. You know, I was getting bullied at school, and, you know, I had this thing that's following me that I'm not able to really cope with. Then, on top of that, you know, it felt like after my great-grandpa died, like my mom forgot she was a parent or something, and like she just was beside herself, and you know, that's how I've explained it. It felt like she forgot she had kids. And my dad was beside himself because he didn't know what to do with her, and let alone any of the rest of us. I also didn't know that I was getting bullied, but because I was acting out, you know, I started getting name called at home. And this is a very, very dark time in my life. So we have this room addition built on, and we're playing. And my mom was in the kitchen, and I was sitting on the couch. And what happened was the entire length of his forearm, and like, I don't remember if he was, what I had that he was grabbing or whatever, but the entire length of his forearm went right against my crotch. And I was like, you know, kind of panic, you know, and then my mom calls me over because she did see it, and because, you know, she was all set to go off, she called me over there to ask me if he touched me. And I panicked and said no, because what had happened before with the shit with my cousin, it didn't matter what did or didn't happen. It's like all of the guilt and shame was just dumped right on me. So then something that she saw, she asked me if anything happened, and I panicked because I didn't want to be in trouble again. And so I said no. But of course, she knew better because she'd seen it. And, you know, after that, like, you know, most of the women in the family were hypersensitive about any girls being around him, you know, and yeah. I had delayed talking about that when it first came up, you know, that I was processing through it again. But since all this other stuff was kind of there with it last night, it's like, here we go again. You know, and I talked to my brother about it today, and he didn't know. I mean, of course, he's like 2.5 years older than me, so he wouldn't have known. But he definitely, his eyes kind of went big, and he was like, shit. You know, like, what do you say? And shit. Back to the crying videos, y'all. You know, but just like all the different layers, like the whole point of this channel thing that I'm doing is this whole healing journey thing. But the deeper levels of it is, you know, trying to get to the bottom of toxic family systems, because there's a whole lot of toxic in this family, and I'm fucking sick of it. And I know probably most of the time I just sound like a little bitch, but you know, that, like, there was a lot of stuff that I felt like, you know, I've said before that it felt like my brother and I, we had that conversation the other day where I asked him if he ever felt like we were more emotionally, like we were the adults as far as like the emotional stuff went, you know, and yeah. But like, that was something we were talking about today, and, you know, I mentioned, like, my mom living from her wound. It's like, rather than her choosing to deal with it so we didn't have to, she ended up perpetuating it by putting it on us, and maybe not even realizing that that's what she was doing, but that's what she was doing. Okay. The other day, I talked about these stuffed animals that I had found in the shed. And there were 5 freaking boxes of them, you know, and then I figured it would just be an easy purge, right? So, it was not an easy purge. This little guy is one that was one of my absolute favorites, and I don't remember when I got him. I just remember always having him. And, you know, he's got some goofy hair now, and he used to have an ancient tissue up in his hat to keep it cushy, but yeah. Anyway, this is the one that I pulled out that I started crying on. And Yeah, look at his little eye. Oh, yeah, it's kind of mostly blocked by his little fuzz. But, you know, I pulled him out, and it's just, like, all at once, I just get hit with this, like, the big wave of emotion. And start bawling on the top of it, too. So, right. So, I had this conversation with my friend, and, you know, talking about I need to start with cleaning them and cleansing them and seeing if that helps. And it did help immensely, because there's a bunch of them that I am ready to part with now. And Gracie just took over like a big box of stuff that I was deciding not to hang on to. And she decided she wanted them, you know, but that just because she wants them doesn't mean she needs all of them, because there's a shit ton of them. This one, yeah, him keeping this guy. But I will say the emotional weight hanging on to this thing now is a lot less, like, painful than it was that first time I brought it out. So I think there was definitely something with cleansing the energy and, you know, the stuck emotions that, you know, I always carried him. So it kind of just went into him, I guess, because I had nowhere else to go with it. So, yeah. Taz is gonna snort at me now. But yeah, so I've cleansed most of them, and you know, there's like 10 of them. It's like I definitely want to hang on to these, but there's a bunch that are gonna go. You know, at some point we're gonna shuffle through them. Gracie, they all, her stuffed animals are in this like big beanbag type chair. The problem with that is, you know, they used to come out on occasion, but they haven't in a long time because it got buried. So it was like she didn't even know what she had. But then she was into them the other day, and then, you know, when she added some of my old ones to it, then she now she's wanting to play stuffed animals all the time. It's like, yeah, we can do that, whatever. Yeah. When I started thinking about this stuff this morning, now mind you, of course, the books that I'm writing in just the Twin Flame books, right? So the 7th, and I mean, they're basically just journals, but for me it helps to write it as though I'm talking to somebody that's not just me rereading it later. It has helped make some connections and all sorts of fun stuff. The 6th book I finished out with the dream and like the heavy connections that I made this morning. And then when I got up later, I took a shower, and you know, okay. One of the things that I told my friend and a couple other people, but when I was talking about it, okay, actually I think I wrote it in the journal first. The big thing, like, okay, the deal with my dad, and like when he pat me on the back or whatever. This is gonna sound really harsh, but it feels energetically like something has like a death grip on my spine. And like the image that came to mind was like demon fingers and like the sharp, nasty nails, and just wrapped around it and hard to dislodge. Now, mind you, my back has hurt since I fell yesterday, since I fucking fell. But I think that kind of was there to serve as this purpose of giving me this image of the demon hand wrapped around my spine. And I feel like, you know, these 3 men that I've talked about in this video, in particular, you know, like it's essentially been tearing me down in some kind of way. You know, my grandpa's was the most adamant about, you know, because what I do is wrong somehow, you know, because I want to have a freaking lip ring, you know, that's something that's wrong with me, you know. And then there's just so many layers of everything stacked up that I'm realizing that here at this level it hurts this much, and, you know, but then there's also these shallow levels where it's like, oh, you don't like that, fuck you. You know, like the guy from the dating app a couple years ago that said, if you've ever had green hair, don't even bother talking to him. There's a little bit of green. Don't even bother talking to him because he's looking for somebody to take to church. It's like, yeah, you know, I'd never had green hair up until that point, but I've had green hair almost every single time since. Yeah, going along with that big fuck you. And, you know, that big sense of that is directly to my grandfather, because literally my entire life I've heard how everything I've done is wrong, and, you know, everything I am is wrong, and it's shit. It's absolute shit, you know. And I don't know. I had a thought, a train of thought that just kind of derailed, and I don't know where I was going with it. You know, but you know, but seeing people who don't, like, their opinion, like, flat out doesn't matter to me, like the guy on the freaking guy on a dating app, you know, it was something that triggered a big flare, you know, at the time, but it wasn't something that I took personally. It was just like, oh, you don't like that? Here, let me do more of that. You know, I told my aunt the other day, her friend's the one that works at the library, and I don't think I finished that story. You know, so she's talking about my colored hair, and she doesn't normally like colors like that, but I really pull it off or whatever. And she starts in on something with her husband just absolutely doesn't understand anybody that would do anything other than natural colors for hair. And, you know, I did tell her that, or about the guy on the dating app, and how I had never had green hair until he said specifically that he didn't like, that if you have ever had green hair, not to bother talking with him. But as I posed it to my aunt, I said it's the biggest douche deterrent that I can think of, because I know that anybody who has a problem with, you know, the way I do my hair or anything else is not somebody I'm going to get along with. So it just saves us all the trouble, rather than me looking normal and, you know, people thinking that because I look normal that, you know, that means that I am an acceptable human. Yeah. I tried the church life. I tried to fit what the standards of the world were telling me, and it didn't work for me. You know, I'm not meant to conform. You know, and that actually popped up on the pattern again today, which was the Uranus conjunct my Leo Venus. You are not somebody, how is it worded? Not somebody to be ignored or whatever. It's like, okay. Yeah. So, I enjoy doing what I want with my face and, you know, makeup and all that stuff. And my wardrobe, I really love this little shirt. You know, and I don't know. But yeah, I told my aunt it's the biggest douche deterrent I could think of. And I probably would have said something to that lady about it had there not been another guy like that had a question for her up there about using the computers. It's like, I'll refrain for the moment. But yeah. Now that Buddha's not jabbering like he was, I feel like it's easier to keep a train of thought. I don't know. I gotta work on that dude with some new songs. Gotta revisit the Pink Panther because I definitely forgot all about that one until he was singing at me earlier. Yeah. I don't know. On the one hand, it's an hour. I need to revisit the video before I post it. And I don't want to stay up all night. On the other hand, I got more I want to talk about. That I didn't even come close to touching on. Having to do with, some of the twin flame stuff that I've learned. Oh, here's one that I was talking about earlier, to a couple of my friends. So the twin flame thing, what I'm finding, or what I have learned through this process, is it's a big part of bringing the aspects of yourself into unity. So the feminine and the masculine, balancing them out and bringing them into harmony within yourself. And, I know a lot of people hear twin flame and think, yeah, that's full of shit. Especially if they watch the Netflix thing. I don't know anything about the Netflix thing other than I'm not giving it any of my time, because I've heard enough from people that are in the twin flame community that were freaking out about it. It's like, nope, not doing that. I avoid drama at all costs if I can. Other than this whole thing that I'm doing here, because I am confident when some of these stories find the light of day, my family's not going to be happy with me. And at this point, I don't even care anymore. That's one of the biggest things, is realizing how much heavier things got because I wasn't taught to listen to that inner voice, which is connected. That goes to that twin flame thing, and his higher self is with me, guiding me, and my higher self is with him, guiding him, kind of a thing. So, as I bring the two aspects together within me, it opens up some scenarios for him to do the same within him. And the big thing that keeps coming to mind lately is, he is the frame, I am the flow. And this has been important because that safety thing. I have never in my life before this year felt safe in my body. And now I'm realizing all these ways that, people are basically latching onto my energy, and that's why I don't feel safe, because I didn't know there were ways to prevent that from happening, and so I just went along with letting it happen, but then, as I started making these connections with his energy being with me, and with the ways his name has followed me around literally my entire life, the ways that I have had random things that I've had to think about, okay, when I was with my ex-husband, I said I wanted to find somebody that feels the same way about dogs that I do. So universe said, be more specific. And the universe presents me with this this guy that has this rescue he does, and I love everything about how this dude loves his animals. It's the Asher house, but I was like, that's a little bit more than I'm trying to get involved with. My 3, I love them to death, but at times they're a lot. You know, so yeah, so I can't do like that many. No. You know, so let's tone this down some, not that much, no. You know, but there are like various things where it's like, all right, you've put this idea out there, let's hone it a little bit more and tell us what you really want. But then I have to revisit it in some kind of way. You know, like then, yeah, I'll skip that one. Yeah, just, you know, different things that I've thought about, like the age gap thing and how much younger I'd be willing to actually date. And, you know, deciding 5 years and then seeing all these other connections with that time frame. It's like, okay. So we're still working on this. So, yeah. But as I realized that we're connected at an energetic level, you know, through that dream that I keep going back into. And like the second time I think I went back into it, where he was talking to me, but he couldn't look at me. And he was basically saying, if you need my help, let me know. And I said that I felt like I had to figure this out on my own right now. So, realizing that we're always connected there. Yeah. Once I realized that it was like my ex was basically a leech on my system, like sapping my energy, you know, I started finding ways to make that not be the thing, right? And then, yeah. Okay. As I have been able to start processing through some of these traumas, and finding that sense of safety within myself. Like back in the fall last year, I went to a concert that his band was playing in, and all I knew was I had to be there. So I go, and it's like hella anxiety the whole way over there, and I just kept saying to myself, I am safe, I am divinely protected, everything is okay. And didn't entirely believe it because, you know, my life taught me that everything is scary and dangerous and you have to, you know, be afraid of your own asshole, basically. So, you know, but like going into that situation, it's like that helped me to start making the shifts to feeling safe in situations where I never would have before. And, you know, I'm starting to realize that I've always had access to this connection, but, you know, my life was telling me I wasn't supposed to have this kind of connection with anything or anybody, you know, so that it surely couldn't be real. But then everything else is showing me that it's very much real. And, you know, as I have started to feel safer in my body and, you know, facing some of these things that I've had to work through, especially more recently. It's like, it feels unending, honestly. But, yeah, like, I know that there's something to it. So, as I've gotten this sense of, okay, like the Natural Mystic was the page that she talks about the divine feminine will not be without her divine masculine container. And I didn't know what that meant at first. I mean, it had some ideas, but it felt really off and painful to think about somebody else stepping into that role because he wasn't at a place where he could be that right now. But then I realized that within, he always is that, and, I think she also said something about, something in the process with the masculine's process and the feminine's process, but she said, while the feminine is going through her process, who really knows what the masculine is doing or whatever, and then I had this dream where, we were crawling through on like these comfort mats, kind of behind and through this crowd, trying not to be seen, but then as soon as our paths cross, then we're like both jump up on our feet and like we're off on this really big important mission. And as we're going, I'm aware that it seems like he knows more about the mission than I do. So then it's like, okay, what does he know? But then, I kind of watched him age backwards before me, and I feel like it was just showing me that he wasn't ready yet, but he's work in progress. The reason I went into that story after all, when I'm just talking about ending it again, ending the video, was because back in June, there was this thing that happened. We went to the celebration of life for our family friend that had passed away. And, his wife and my mom were best friends since, high school at least, but I don't know when they started going to school together, probably all of it. But they were like best friends. So then, they continued that after they each got married. But they also had another friend that we used to spend a lot of time with when I was little. This friend, there was a whole ordeal. She had a son, and my mom had left me and my brother with her while she ran into a store. It was just real quick. She was going around the corner or something. And somehow I got hung up on the escalator. I don't remember what happened exactly. I just remember being scared shitless because I get hung up on this big thing. And I don't know if like my lace got hung up with it too or whatever, but this lady was like, she couldn't do anything to help me because she had her son, and my mom was like royally pissed at her. And I think that was like the last time we really spent any serious time with these people. But at the celebration of life, this woman and her husband were there, and my mom and I and my dad are sitting at this table outside under this little canopy, and these two come and join us. No biggie, whatever. They talked several times while they were there. They said that they had something else going on that day, that they weren't going to be able to stay real long. So, at one point where he's sitting, her husband, it kind of gets hit by the sun for directly for a while. So he gets up and moves to the other side of the canopy. While he's there talking with my dad, I start getting really uncomfortable. It's not anything he's doing or saying to me specifically, but his presence started making me really uncomfortable. And, I remember in one of the metaphysical classes that I'd taken, they were talking about how to basically expand your aura to fill up a space. And I talked to the guy that asked me if I was being too cautious with my boundaries at one point. We were kind of talking about this after class one night. A group of us went out to eat, and he was kind of talking about just being able to allow heavy emotions to pass through you, and that kind of thing. But anyway, so this guy's there and making me uncomfortable. And since, I have this idea, so I try, willing it into the existence or whatever, and nothing's happening. And so I say, hey, to Twin Flame, but use name. I said, he's making me uncomfortable. You know, it's to myself in my head. It's like, hey, he's making me uncomfortable. How do we do this to make him go away? Right? And like, all it was, put it out there, the request. And within about 30 seconds, this guy starts looking kind of uncomfortable and goes and sits back down by his wife. And like within 2 minutes, he seems like he's still got some anxiety going on or whatever. And he looks at his wife and says, hey, I think it's time to go. It's like, within like 3 minutes of this, him making me uncomfortable, just standing near me, then suddenly like he's up and out of there. It's like, this is magic. I like it. You know, but just asking. And then suddenly there it is. Hey, opportunity. And hey, he's gone. Yay. Oh, but now that I know that's a thing, you know, and Natural Mystic, I think she's talking about how, you know, the Divine Masculine is the container, and he had, like, his energy kind of darts out, it's outgoing and whatnot. And so then, like, and then I just have this visual of, like, his energy is just, like, zapping this guy and making him leave. It's like, hey, I'll take it. I will absolutely take it. And now that I know that's a thing that can happen, you can be damn sure that I'm going to use that more. Oh, yeah. Just in my real world situation, that's perfectly relevant and useful. You know, and it's like, it would have been nice to know that that was a thing that could happen when I was little and having to face with all these, you know, the big scary monsters that nobody realized were monsters to me, or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap this up and yeah, get ready for bed because I've had so much day today. Oh, there's like, you know, my knee at one point in the middle of the night was like, it locked up. It's like, oh, I don't want that to be a thing now too. Shit. I wanted to skate today and had every intention of skating today. And then like my knee was just like, nope, you're not skating today. So much for that. And my parents left to go camping for the weekend. And let me tell you, I really love these weekends. And me and my dogs get the house to ourselves, do whatever we want. Yeah, because I'm so wild. But yeah, we went earlier. We walked late because my brother had my car. And then, you know, we went straight to PetSmart and I got them a couple cans of food because I like getting them the cans of food when the other dogs are gone. So we can, I mean, I'll share it with them too, but you know, might get it. I used to always put stuff in their food, and whether it was like canned food or, hey, we have cottage cheese, so I'm throwing cottage cheese in there or whatever. But, you know, the first time my parents went camping after they got their camper, it was just like, we're not doing that, so let's do something for us. So, well, yeah. Unfortunately, a little ice cream shop in town is closed, so there will not be any ice cream runs until March, but oh well. I mean, I seriously thought about going to Dairy Queen earlier, but yeah, they don't, okay, they have pup cups, but the last time I did that, I got me a medium strawberry sundae, and then I got 3 pup cups, and it cost $11. It's like, this feels a bit much when, like, the local place doesn't charge for the ice cream for dogs. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to get off of here so I can, I guess, watch it before bed or just skip it and go to bed and worry about it tomorrow. We'll find out. As always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.